was something that I also felt always reflected my mom's small physique on the one hand, but inner strength that we always were surprised over and over again as we knew on how much inner strength she had and how almost misleading it was to see her such a small character, but what an impact she had on all of us. Of course, growing up in her home, and just the whole entity of Gvura. I've spent 2 years now on segways, taking people around the menorah of the Knesset, the famous menorah with all the key historical events, where we see how Jews have always faced the enemy outnumbered. And there's a quotation there that says, "Lo b'koach v'lo b'chayil ki im beruchi amar Hashem tzvaot." How the spirit of Gvura always came across as such a typical Jewish attribute. And that is something that I felt I needed to reflect on also in terms of coming out of Avelut and gathering the psychology behind moving on, not just to let go of the pain. At some point you feel that the pain controls you, that you're actually being controlled by the loss, and you realize that you got to at some point let that go. You can't be loyal to the uvdan, to the loss, to the mourning. You actually have to let that go. You got to let that go in order for it not to overwhelm you every time, and not to control you. And you have to, in a way, embrace my mom's memory, and always, as I said to Doreen, that this year it was very worrying to hear that she wouldn't be joining us. I said to her on the phone that it's perfectly okay, and that Imma would have preferred you to stay at home. And I found that often the way I've been related to the loss is that she's actually with us, and what she would have said and how she would have seen all of us today, what we're doing, how we're moving on, and what we're involving our lives with. She'd be very proud, and she'd know that we're doing what we love doing, and in a way we would have done it anyway. With her here, we would have done exactly the same decisions, all being back in Israel, of course. And just to end off, also another tour that we do, I'm not promoting anything, but another tour that we do is on the Tayelet. And I often stand before a group and I say, it says, "V'ashkem Avraham b'boker," Avraham got up early in the morning, took Yitzchak Bno, his only son, got onto a Segway and made his way over here to the Armon HaNatziv, because that is the first point where you can actually see Har Moriah coming from the south. And it says, "Vayar et hamakom merachok," he saw it from afar. So the Mechkar says it's somewhere along that Tayelet. No one knows exactly where, but somewhere along the Tayelet. Of course, from Neve Daniel, you can also see Har Moriah. And there's a whole argument there of where that point was actually situated. But Yitzchak, being Akedat Yitzchak, the first historical Jewish historical event that takes place on Har Moriah, I always found myself in awe of him. The message of Yitzchak and his association to Gvura. Yitzchak was the only one who never left Israel. He was the one, they say he was even cut slightly by Avraham before he was told to stop. And Yitzchak was always the forefather, the Av, who was reflected on Gvura. And it says in Parshat Chayei Sarah that Sarah heard about the Akedah. That's when she passed away. And that for me this year, for some reason, I felt really identified with that loss, specifically for Yitzchak, who was always the Gibor and the strong one. And losing a mother under those circumstances, and the guilt you must have felt, thinking maybe it's because of him that she passed away. going into the psychology of it, it also says that when Rivka came across, first thing he did was he took her into his mother's tent. And it says over there that only at that point, it says, "Vayitnachem Yitzchak acharei imo," only when he found Rivka. And of course, 8 years ago, when we were burying my mom in the cold of Gush Etzion, and of course taken back by the suddenness of the loss. You never forget the taste of that suddenness, that immediate fact that is given to you on a plate. That is it. Go deal with it. It's not a process of saying goodbye or anything. It's an immediate realization. That fact, I think we all needed a bit of gvura to deal with it, to absorb, understand, and of course gvura to move on. And may we all be my blessing to all of us. As my mom touched whoever's here, she touched him in a certain way. My blessing for all of us is that min hashamayim tenuchamu, that really we'll have some sort of supernatural intervention here, to give us that koach to just really move on in a very, very real, truthful, honest way, not chas v'chalila in shadow of her moving on, but in honor of her legacy and her memory, that she's with us today, and of course very proud of all of us. So thank you all for coming. It was really special. It was every year it's special to see that there's so many people, and באמת אכפת לכולם.